call this meeting to order. I would like to welcome everyone to the workshop meeting for the Susquehanna Township Board of Commissioners. I would note that the commissioners are all present except for Commissioner Lynch and Commissioner Engel, both are excused absence. I would note that the board did meet in executive session to discuss matters permitted by law, including litigation, real estate, personal matters, bond settlements, and related activities. Of all discussions were informal, easy for me to say, and not deliberated. We will lead off tonight's pledge of allegiance, moment of silence, and I would ask commissioners to lead us, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right. We'll start off with petitions, complaints, suggestions from citizens. Is there anyone who would like to address the board? If so, please come forward. State your name and address. Keep your comments to 3 minutes, please. Is there anyone here to address? Seeing none, we'll move on then. Let's move on to the approval of the minutes for May 9th, 2024. This is the regular meeting. I would ask for a motion.
And Mr. Vice President, I'd like to move for approval of the minutes of our May 9th regular meeting.
Second. It's been moved and second. Any comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the motion carries. There are no recognitions and presentations. We'll now move into the public hearing of the Susquehanna Township Bicycle Pedestrian and Greenway Plan. I will adjourn the workshop meeting, which will be led by our solicitor, Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. The board has heard several times about the bicycle pedestrian greenways plan for Susquehanna Township. There's been several public comment periods. We've had some discussions and a showing of the potential plan and map from our consultant. Item J in this agenda, the administration will be asking for us to adopt the plan and to close out the DCNR C2P2 grant project BRC-tag-28-2. I think what I'd like to do for purposes of this hearing is ask the manager, or I think Doug is not here, the manager whether he has any additional comments or additional framing, and I'll ask the public if they have anyone wants to testify about that, and I'll ask the board if they have anything they want to put on the record. So, Mr. Prabulka, is there anything that you want to frame about the bicycle pedestrian greenways plan?
Sure, thank you. So as the board knows, this is the product of many months of work from staff, from our design professional, from the Board of Commissioners, from residents and stakeholders. So again, we certainly appreciate all the input that we've received in the development of this plan. Part of the reason why it's being presented in the manner it is because we're following the guidelines of the municipality's planning code as it pertains to the enactment of municipal-wide comprehensive plans. We believe that this will give it standing as a planning tool, make state and federal funds more readily available to implement some of those projects, give us some additional leverage, if you will, for lack of a better way to put it, when we're talking about land development plans for some of these connectivity issues to be addressed and for multimodal transportation to be considered as part of that. So it's a little more formal than I think perhaps you've heard with some of the other recently developed plans by the township, but I wanted you to know that it's done that way for a reason, and we appreciate your time and investment this evening and before. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Manager Prabulka. Is there any member of the public who would like to testify about the bicycle pedestrian greenways plan? I assure you, having viewed it at least 3 times, it is a very exciting plan. That actually I think is going to be a great benefit to the township. Is there any member of the Board of Commissioners who wants to spread anything on the record? Members of the Board of Commissioners, I'm going to suggest to you that we've met the legal requirement of having a public meeting. It's been properly advertised. We've asked for, I think the manager has ably explained the context of this plan. My recommendation is to close the public comment part of this meeting. And then I would further suggest, since the item is at J and just sitting there, that the board consider just voting on J as we sit here after the close of the public hearing. And so I would close the public hearing, return the gavel to Mr. Vice President, and encourage the board to make a choice of voting on J, and then we can get back to I and so on forth.
Okay, we're now out of the hearing, and we'll resume our workshop meeting for the Board of Commissioners. I'm going to move item J, Resolution 2024 R17, up on the agenda to adopt the Susquehanna Township Bicycle, Pedestrian, and Greenway Plan and closing out the Community Conservation Partnership Program Grant Project BRC-TAG-28-2. Is there a motion?
Yes, also move.
Second?
It's been moved and second. Any comments or questions? Seeing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion carries. Okay, we'll now move on to item I, which is the traffic study. Okay, this is for a traffic study request for Montrose Street. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. So I'll do a quick intro, and then I'd like to ask the township engineer to provide his input. So staff's been working with some residents of Montrose Street in the First Ward over the last several months to try and address the prevalence of truck traffic on that corridor. More likely than not, we believe that trucks are using that street as a cut-through to go from North Front Street onto North 6th Street. We've implemented measures that were justified by various studies to restrict access to residential deliveries, as well as to restrict it to truck axles of fewer than 3 axles, so anything smaller than a triaxle truck. Options, as far as we've heard from the residents, conditions have not improved out there. Other options that are currently in consideration would be to put some signage on Front Street itself to try to direct traffic in a different direction. We need to get permission from the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, which requires a little bit of preliminary work, but I think we figured that would take just a few hours of the engineer's time to get that process finalized, and then we'll be into materials to install a street. We've already installed several street signs. We've revised those street signs to try to be more direct and hopefully have more of an impact. Public safety has increased enforcement along that corridor, so we've been trying to capture the violators and give them warnings, educate them about the restrictions, and try to encourage them, as well as their ultimate points of destination, to have their drivers use alternate routes. Again, with perhaps limited success. Another option to consider would be to evaluate warrants for a truck length restriction. I've had a few preliminary conversations with the engineer, and we don't believe that will have a demonstrable effect compared to the restrictions that are already in place, but he'd probably be better able to speak to that concern himself if the board would indulge him.
Yes. How you doing?
Doing well. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Good. I guess we're on here. Yeah, so as Manager Probalka stated, the consideration of a length restriction in this particular case, our traffic engineers didn't believe would be successful in reducing larger vehicles from entering onto Montrose, specifically from Front Street, in the sense that the axle restriction is based off of what's called a single unit 30 truck template, which is a 2-axle 30-foot long truck. That's, the next size is a triaxle. So the ability to turn onto Montrose from front is limited to anything less than 30 feet. So if we went to a 30-foot length restriction, we're still essentially at the same, it doesn't change much from a 3-axle restriction, because once you get over the 30-foot, you're up to 3 axles. So for the sake of enforcement, it was our traffic engineers' thoughts that single counting axles is much more easy for the police officers to take notice of without actually having to take measurements. So they didn't believe it would result in any further reduction of truck traffic onto Montrose. So we can certainly proceed that way. It's of minimal effort for us. We've already done the study. It's just modifying the recommendation to switch from an axle restriction to a length restriction. We just don't feel that these kind of warrant any significant results. Oh, sorry. Prove any results.
Very good. So I think we do have some residents from Montrose Street here this evening. I think we're just looking at this point for any direction from the board if you want us to proceed with further analysis. We're certainly still continuing down the path of increased enforcement and trying to get compliance that way, as well as exploring our options, trying to get some signage on Front Street. Turning radius is an issue for trucks coming from Lingelstown Road, turning right onto 6th Street. So that, while it would certainly be the maybe most practical alternative, presents its own challenges as well. So, we're kind of reaching a stalemate here, and we could further study it, or, we could continue to monitor conditions and keep doing what we're doing and trying to improve things where we can.
Mr. Vice President, if I may.
Yes.
Thank you. So I just want to say, first of all, the way it's listed on the agenda, it kind of looks final, that we're denying a traffic study. But in reality, to pursue another study, we're looking for other alternatives then. One of the best alternatives that I heard suggested, and I think it was from residents, was to have GPS data reflect that trucks are not permitted on that street. I was copied on an email to a resident yesterday, and that's the first time, we've discussed this since we met with residents several months ago. So I picked up the phone and called the liaison at PennDOT, and I'm working with them because they have access to that service, because they have to provide them detours and other information. So while this may not be something they can do for us, they can certainly tell us whom we can contact to get that information out there. So I think that would be one of the most effective things we can do, because we have the signs in place. People are disregarding the signs, so it's got to be a multi-pronged approach with the enforcement, as well as feeding that information through the GPS to the trucks. And I think signs, you mentioned signs on Front Street, signs further north as you're traveling south, so that you can see that sign before you get to Montrose, that there's no truck traffic, like truck traffic prohibited in neighborhood ahead, or whatever the official verbiage would be on this sign. And then I don't know if this is possible, but another idea that I thought of was potentially a boulevard strip in that block. Because if you had a boulevard strip, a tractor trailer or a larger truck couldn't turn down there very effectively. There's no parking in that block. You have the PA Dental Association, and they have a parking lot. They don't use on-street parking. And on the opposite side of the street, the south side, there's a vacant lot. So if we had a boulevard strip there, that could prevent. So, and I'm open to other suggestions, but I mean, this isn't final. If you don't think changing the length, the restriction to length is going to have an impact, we have to look for other options to deal with the issue. So those are some of my ideas, and I'll let you know when I hear back from PennDOT about the GPS.
Okay. I would hate to ask for a traffic study.
Well, to be clear, to shift it to a length restriction, again, the study's already done,
Right.
so, it would,
And it says in the narrative here that we were working up, updating the third-party GPS application to avoid this route.
Well, where are we with that?
I don't know.
Turn to our resident Google Earth
Here we
expert.
So I spent many hours on the phone with Google and
Okay.
Apple. They no longer do that. They will do temporary detours for emergency situations. They reference you to your local ordinance and signage. They stopped doing that 3 years ago. So I spent many times sending emails. Finally, somebody called me, because I guess they got tired of my emails. But they said there's too much liability in them detouring trucks, that they reference you to your local ordinances and signage.
Well, I appreciate your efforts in trying to do that. I'm still going to follow up with PennDOT.
Yep.
Because they might have some other suggestions too.
Yeah, I sat through a Sticks committee meeting, this was a couple months ago, where they are working on an initiative using Waze, but it's still in the Sticks committee nationally. It hasn't been approved yet, but it's something they're looking to do to better, especially what's pushing it here in Pennsylvania was the big accident during the snowstorm on 81.
Sure.
Trucks didn't know where they couldn't go, and that's what's pushing the whole thing along with Route 80, but
Okay.
it's still in the design phase, as far as I know from the last meeting. So that's probably what he's referencing, because they're trying to use it with their new signboards that they're installing everywhere.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be all interconnected somehow.
Would it be possible to table this until we hear back from the commissioner and you talk to chief and?
Well, I think we didn't have to vote on it, so.
Right.
Yeah.
But if there's.
I mean,
nothing
keep it on the agenda so that it doesn't fall off the agenda, but, you know, we come back in 2 weeks and discuss this again to find out where you are with, you know, the GPS and talking to PennDOT and any, just keep it on the agenda so we follow up on it.
Because I started this back with the Cone Road Bridge reduction.
Yeah.
And I started all my requests back then, and that's when I started getting the answers of, hey, we don't do this anymore. Because if it pushes someone to another street and they hit a bridge, you're not coming after us because our map said to go that way.
Right.
Okay.
So that's why they're
Make
no
them
longer
liable.
entertaining that.
Well, thank you, Nate. I appreciate your efforts in trying to
Thank
do
you.
that. And can I, Mr.
Yes,
Vice President, can I just ask one
absolutely.
question to the engineer? So off the top of your head, a boulevard strip, does that sound like something, or is it just
so typically.
not possible?
Yeah, typically, and I'm actually trying to pull it up as we speak, typically a boulevard requires two 15-foot lanes and then a 10-foot boulevard.
Okay,
So that would put us at 40 feet, and I believe Montrose is 30 feet. So some alteration thereof, if the commissioners approve it, I mean, potentially.
yeah, and again, any suggestions are welcome and appreciated
Yeah.
in your,
Yeah, I mean-
experience in controlling traffic flow.
I don't think the advanced signage along Front Street could hurt by any means. But I think I agree with you, and as previously discussed, it's the GPS funneling traffic onto Montrose. And then, once they get down there, even if they recognize the signs, they don't know where else to go. They're in that neighborhood, and they know that they have to get to that point, and Montrose is the most direct. And unfortunately for Montrose, it's actually amongst the widest streets down there, so it's actually the easiest for trucks to get into.
What would be the next street? I mean, if they didn't use that, what would be
That's the
available to?
thing, you keep,
There are no good streets
for Right.
trucks.
Division?
No, because you,
Oh, that's right, that's right. I'm guessing, I'm asking.
yeah, no, I'm sorry.
that's what I mean, Montrose is really the widest street in that corridor, Bergman would be, I believe, next, and that's really narrow.
That doesn't reach 6th.
Yeah, and that doesn't even reach the,
Well, maybe if we could look at any suggestions you might have, or if a boulevard strip,
Yep.
if there's a way to make that work.
we can certainly,
There's got to be some kind of traffic calming measures out there.
we could look at traffic calming, like bump outs or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, anything that would keep a truck from driving down there. And considering they're prohibited from driving there, you know,
Right.
so
Give them
anything
tickets.
to make it,
Okay,
thanks, appreciate it.
good to go?
But, and then please keep us posted, okay?
Sure.
Thanks.
All right. Well, now,
Mr. Vice President?
yes, sir.
While we're on traffic studies, I'd just like to bring it to the attention of the board that I have a constituent who's looking for the possibility of a speed bump between, on North Progress between Continental and I believe it's North Lakeview. There's a curve there, and people come up around that curve sometimes pretty fast. And people trying to pull out of the Lakeview community have a concern about, trying to reduce the speed of people coming up through there. And I'm not sure we need a study, but I'd like maybe the chief to take a look at it and, see if there's been any accidents in that area, that type of thing.
Okay.
Well, my recollection, though, of North Progress, there's restrictions, I would think, under state law for speed bumps on that type of a road. But from,
Well, there's a speed bump on North Progress further down, closer to Lingostown Road.
North Progress is a local road.
Right.
Yeah, North Progress is.
That's township
On
Township.
north of Lingostown Road.
oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep, going up the mountain.
Yeah, the other side, okay.
Yeah,
I think
Yes.
that, I think
so
the
I
chief-
just kind of like to get the ball rolling on that.
I think the chief is having some audio visual things, but I'm sure the manager will provide your request to him. There's nothing for it to do that.
Okay. So could we leave a message for Chief to look at this traffic, I guess?
So I guess just a clarifying question is, are you just looking to get some data at this point, or do you want us to come up with a recommendation on whether a speed hump would be warranted
Yeah,
in that?
that's what I'm looking for.
Okay, yeah, I
Take a
can
look
assign
at
that.
The issue and see if it is warranted or, what action might be warranted to try to address the concern. That's all.
Can do, and you sent me the specifics, so I have
Okay,
the segment. I'll send it over to Chief
okay.
to assign.
Sir, we're out of public comments right now, but did you want to?
So the public comment you requested at the beginning, I should have spoken then?
Yes.
I thought that was maybe a little premature because this matter hadn't been presented.
Any of,
It's the board's prerogative to allow some.
you may have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Mike Jeanette.
Come, wait till your mic. Go ahead, so we get you.
My name is Mike Jeanette. I live at 205 Montrose Street with my wife Debbie. And I guess I've been one of the neighbors that sort of spearheaded this kind of traffic campaign. Working with Manager Pravilka for the last year and a half, I'm sure, and with his predecessor prior to that. The sign change, the sign change was, it used to be a 5-ton weight limit restriction. When I started talking to the township and the police officers about enforcing those signs, they said, look, we really didn't do, these signs have been here a long time, we really didn't do kind of what we needed to do to enforce that. So we're going to pull those down, we're going to do a traffic study, which we did, and it was determined that the new signage should be an axle restriction. So the top sign says 3 axles or more, and the bottom sign, it used to say local deliveries only, but in December it was changed to residential deliveries only, which is better, because trucks coming through our neighborhood from Front Street to 6th could just say, when they were pulled over, well, it's a local delivery, I'm going to a business over on 6th Street and, dropping my, freight. So limited to residential now, which is good. Now, the 3-axle restriction, only covers tractor trailers. And so for every tractor trailer that would drive down and continues to drive down Montrose Street, and they're considerable, there are probably a dozen 30-feet-long commercial two-axle trucks that drive up and down all day long. It's a much more common truck. It's still a diesel truck. It's still a commercial delivery truck. It's still loud. It's still, and there are so much more of them than tractor trailers. So, but they're not restricted under this new signage because they have two axles. So they're completely permitted in our neighborhood, and they're really the folks that we wanted to target because they were the biggest problem. So, you know, the traffic study's already been done, and I don't know the details of that. I don't know if it tells you what data that gives you. I don't know if it says how many tractor trailers, how many 30-foot trucks, how many, you know, various sizes or weights or whatever. I get weight is a problem because the township doesn't have the resources in the police department to go out there and weigh trucks and do all that kind of stuff like the state police and other bigger departments do. But they certainly have a tape measure, and they can certainly count axles like they've been doing. So the axle sign is fine, but perhaps another one that restricts this other more prevalent type of truck that is just driving through our neighborhood all day and night to all the businesses over on 6th Street. And these trucks can easily turn on division because they're not full, you know, they're not 50-foot long tractor trailers, but they're still very large trucks and they have no business in a residential neighborhood. So that's our position. And we're really hoping that, you know, either we pull out the study that's already been done and look on something else. Now, the traffic calming measures that Commissioner Rabarczyk mentions would be terrific. If we could get those, I mean, I think that would do the trick. Enforcement has really helped. And, you know, Chief Martin and you know, his people have really taken a special interest in the neighborhood, have really pulled a lot of people over in the last 6 months.
Very good. We're going to keep it on the agenda, a focus, you know, keep it on the agenda, and she'll follow up on it then.
And if I could just ask, if at our next meeting, Alex, if you could please bring whatever data you have, the difference of the different, if you have about the different size of trucks, to answer the question about.
If you want, I can speak to that right now.
Sure.
I don't know if you want to prolong this.
Yeah, we're hot.
In order to warrant a restriction, you have to have justification. The justification is that the maximum length of vehicle that can make that turn onto Montrose is 30 foot. The truck template for a 30-foot truck is a box truck, exactly what Mr. Jeanette was saying. Like, so those are the trucks that can safely turn onto that road based on their length. Once you get to a triaxle, they can no longer negotiate the turn.
Okay.
That's why it was clipped at 30 feet, which is the two-axle box truck.
Okay.
Once you get bigger than that, then you're into a triaxle.
Okay.
So it's kind of 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
Right.
That's what.
If I could just add one thing to that, I promise this will be the last thing I say.
Go ahead.
The police have routinely, since the signs have been changed, have pulled over just tractors, 3-axle tractors that probably aren't anywhere near, you know, probably 20 feet long. But it's still violating the signage, and they still shouldn't be driving through our neighborhood.
Right.
And that signage prevents that. So I would submit that it shouldn't just be what can fit through our neighborhood. It should be, it's a residential neighborhood. We don't want giant trucks driving through there all day long to, you know, do commercial business on the other side of town. I mean, you could probably drive a Sherman tank down Montrose if you had to, but we don't want that either.
I think what Alex is saying, by law, we can only prohibit trucks that can't fit. So if it can fit, we can't say you can't drive through
Still
here.
public roadway.
Yeah.
I understand, but I see signs on you know, the newly two-way 2nd Street that have different type restrictions. And it just seems like, you know, something like that would, the consideration that is a residential neighborhood, these trucks should be driving somewhere else. So,
Let us follow up.
okay,
Okay?
all right, thanks.
I appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Anything else?
Thank you for
Okay.
your latitude,
Yep,
sir.
sure. Next up, we'll move on to Resolution 2024-R-18, a resolution of Susquehanna Township, Dauphin County, Pennsylvania, authorizing the Vice President and the Secretary of the Board of Commissioners to execute an intergovernmental agreement with the Susquehanna Township School District for the use of an automated stop signal alarm enforcement system.
I can sub in if you'd like for Chief Martin, who isn't able to hear us. I don't think he's on the, oh, he might be on there. So, with your agenda this evening, there is a resolution that would authorize the execution of an intergovernmental agreement with the school district. This would enable their implementation of an automated stop signal arm enforcement system. The vendor that they're using for this is a national group called Bus Patrol. They've installed these camera systems on thousands of buses nationwide. There's no cost to the township except for the time that we would incur in reviewing and approving essentially any citations that are issued under the program. In turn, we would get a portion of the revenue that is received from the issuance of these citations. Chief Martin estimates approximately 15 minutes per day of the school resource officer's time to review, so it's really not a big time consumer for our school resource officer or any of our administrative staff. So our recommendation is that you approve the agreement. It's been reviewed by the solicitor. There is some wordsmithing to the agreement that's with your agenda that needs to be done for clarification purposes, and I believe one or two minor typographical errors that we've forwarded on to their vendor for review. But the draft IGA, intergovernmental agreements, with your agenda, along with some FAQs or frequently asked questions that were provided by the vendor. The school district representatives were unable to make tonight's meeting, but if there is interest in hearing from them, if there's any concerns about proceeding, we can table this and schedule follow-up discussion for June 13th. However, I thought that because it's not had any major concerns by staff or the solicitor, that if the board was comfortable in proceeding this evening, you certainly could. There will be, along with this, a pretty concerted public outreach and education campaign, so that they're not just going to begin citing violators, but this coupled with the material that they're going to distribute, and we will in turn amplify through the use of some of our social media and other outreach tools at our disposal, we hope will help to bring compliance and ultimately improve the safety for our residents and students. So it's with our recommendation that you approve this resolution this evening.
Thank you, sir. Is there a motion on the floor to approve?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any comments or questions?
Is this a camera that records the license plates and then that's how you issue the citation? I'm trying to understand.
Yes, it would capture the plate number so that we could follow find the registered owner of the vehicle and then issue the citation based off of that. They're mounted to the side of the camera right on the stop arm itself. So it should be a pretty good vantage point to capture that, the data we need to, if necessary, issue a citation.
And these are in use in other school districts in Pennsylvania?
Other school districts in Pennsylvania, they have a pretty significant Pennsylvania presence, but this bus patrol vendor, as well as nationwide. I can't recall the exact amount, but I think it was around 40 school districts in the Commonwealth that utilize this system already.
Thank you.
Very good. It's been moved and second. All in favor? Say
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. Thank you all. Now moving on to item 3, which is the award of the contract 2024-C9 line painting in thermoplastic. Our own Public Works Director.
Under this one, I am Nathan. I guess the next one, I'm Nate. It's just noticed. So with your agenda, there was a memorandum that showed Capcog won, did the bidding for us this year. GE Gamble won for line painting and thermoplastic this year. I believe with the memorandum, there was 2 lists showing the areas we're going to do this year, focusing mainly on getting our traffic signals in compliance with their markings. After this year, minus Elmerton Avenue, will be completely compliant. Elmerton Avenue was put off because that's supposed to get repaved by PennDOT, which they will then front the cost for that one, which has now been pushed to 2026, I heard this
What?
this week.
I'm sorry.
Elmerton's pushed to 2026. So, looking for approval, for DE Demo in the amount of 28,362, not to exceed 28,362. Anything above that, I will bring back to the board for any change.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Wow, it's been moved and second. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carried. Don't move, Nate or Nathan. Award of contract 2024-C10 ST Strawberry Alley Paving. Mr. Director.
So provided with your agenda is a quote from Morgan Paving Incorporated to repave Strawberry Alley. The alleyway has been substantially eroded by truck traffic over the last few years, primarily garbage trucks. The project is below the threshold of competitive bidding, and 3 quotes were secured for the work. Staff is recommending the Board of Commissioners to award the contract to Morgan Paving Incorporated in the amount of $22,150. The funds will get paid out of the Transportation Improvement Fund, as the road segment is not eligible for liquid fuels, and this is contingent on them getting bonded for the work to cover us.
Yes, Mr. Vice President.
Yes, sir.
Part of the requirement that Manager Prabulka and I noticed in the first-class township code is that if you do this, you still have to get some sort of security. And so we're going to ask you to pass this conditioned on there being security sufficient for the manager and solicitor. So just in case something
Yes.
happens.
So this would be passed with
With that condition.
Yep, with conditions, okay? Is there a motion on the floor for this?
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any questions or comments?
Where is this located within the,
It is,
just to get it?
It's off of Wood Street.
it's one road off Wood Street going east. It's a short segment.
Oh,
The
okay.
center of the road's pushed up about 1.5 feet, and the side of the road's pushed up about 2 feet. It's
Okay.
This is the one I
It's down
sent
by,
the
down
map
by
out.
the
between
middle
Pine
school.
and Ash Street.
Yeah,
Okay, I couldn't remember. Okay.
not a problem. I sent the map out this week on it, because I'm like you, I'm lost. I need visuals,
Yeah.
so. All right, so.
Yeah, it wasn't in the packet, I
Yep.
couldn't remember. But
Not a
thank you.
problem. It's been moved and second. All right, we had our comments. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion carries. Yes.
Question, speaking of paving, is Locust Lane supposed to be paved this year?
Oh,
Nathaniel or Nathan?
Nate.
So, as far, in reference to the sewer project,
Well, it goes from all the way from 22 all the way out through Lower Paxton.
so I just sat through a long meeting with Lower Paxton earlier this week. That was supposed to be this year. PennDOT also, they milled everything to try to
Yeah.
get it
Yeah.
where it. They told Lower Paxton we're pushing that off 2 years now too.
Because it looks like Beirut. It's got huge.
Yeah.
So all local projects for this area seems like PennDOT did a 2-year push.
Wow.
The only reason I knew that is because we budgeted money to team up with their ADA ramp compliance. And I was trying to figure out where they're at with this, and they're like, oh yeah, this got pushed back 2 years.
So
So
that route,
they haven't notified anyone until here recently.
So that wouldn't affect Wood Street then?
No, the section that was disturbed with the sewer project will
right.
be replaced with the sewer project. As required by our HOP permit.
Right.
Which, all that paving, you should start seeing that within the next 2 weeks.
Well, I've seen some actually in the area, like.
They're doing the base repair right now,
Base repair, okay.
and then they'll come mill and pave curb to curb.
Okay.
I can't believe they're gonna leave Locust Lane like that for 2 years.
Our section will be nice, it's just don't drive into Lower Paxton.
Good.
My man.
Oh, yeah, Locust Lane is like, it's all, when you drive down that stretch of road down by the ABC bowling lane, it's like ready to be,
Yeah.
and they're gonna leave that for 2 years now. Oh, my.
'Cause I jump on
I know because I drive that every day.
I drive it at least for church every week, yeah.
Alright. long as it's in Lower Paxton, not so.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah.
It's not our locust lane.
Yeah. All right, so we'll move on to item 5. All right, formation of a fire study implementation ad hoc committee. Manager Provoca.
All right, thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Yes, sir.
So with your agenda this evening is a memorandum from yours truly. If you were to proceed this evening, it would create a ad hoc committee essentially for the recommendations, to evaluate the recommendations that came from the recently accepted Susquehanna Township Fire Department organizational analysis. That committee would include 7 ex officio or office members that would be the president of the Board of Commissioners, the liaison from the board on the Public Safety Committee, which is right now Commissioner Hisserow, the township manager, the public safety director, the fire marshal, and the chiefs of each of the fire companies. I think, is that all of them? Sorry, I'm having
1, 2, 3, 4.
So I think
5,
that's 7.
6.
I think I said 7.
Yep,
there.
you're over.
Thank you.
Yep, you're 8.
So, this committee would not be given any sort of official authority except to evaluate and submit recommendations to you all as the Board of Commissioners on the action steps that came from that study. Essentially, their first tasks would be to take them all in aggregate, identify which ones have been already worked on. Much of what you saw in that study is already in process, particularly as it pertains to the organizational structural items like the development of the standard operating guidelines and procedures. The more in the weeds documents that the fire marshal and some of the public safety team have been working on. So they could look at those and sort of put them in a bucket and then begin to prioritize, triage, evaluate the remaining action steps based on their need, based on the resources that might be available to address them, and then try to develop an action plan. There might be some recommendations that are put on hold for the time being. There may be others that you want to revise and move forward with. But I think that the first step is really to develop a small working group that can sift through it all and then develop a cogent set of recommendations for you to consider at a future meeting.
Very good.
Mr. Vice President, I'd like to move to establish the Fire Study Implementation Ad Hoc Committee.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved and second. Any questions or comments?
Yes, Mr. Vice President,
Yes.
if I may, just a question. So we're voting just to form an ad hoc committee in general?
That's correct.
Is it the prerogative of the president then to appoint members?
Well, what I'm recommending would be that the offices, for lack of a better way to put it, that are in the agenda be the representatives on that committee. So that would include the township manager, the board president, the liaison to the public safety committee, the chiefs of the 2 fire companies, Rescue and Progress, and the fire marshal.
And the police chief, well, public safety.
Public safety director, correct. Those 7 individuals.
Okay, that answers
Good.
my question.
Okay, good. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. Thank you. Now move on to item number 6, authorization to advertise a public hearing on an ordinance amending Chapter 27 zoning in the official zoning map by establishing a state institution overlay ordinance. I'll ask the Assistant Township Manager, Ms. Logan.
Thank you. At the May 9th regular meeting, the Board of Commissioners preliminarily passed a draft ordinance amendment establishing a state institution overlay zoning district. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is requesting this amendment be considered to enable the construction of a multi-purpose laboratory facility on the site of the state hospital grounds owned by the Department of General Services. The Dauphin County Planning Commission reviewed the draft and has offered several suggestions. The Planning Commission reviewed the draft at their April meeting and also had recommendations. Those recommendations were taken into account and some amendments were made, and it went before the Planning Commission again at their May meeting on the 20th, which was Monday. The revised ordinance is in your agenda. The Planning Commission did recommend to approve the draft with the amendments. So the township is looking for approval to authorize advertise a public hearing to adopt this zoning text amendment and map amendment for the Thursday, June 13th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. Anything else to come? We have consent agendas, correct? And there are 9. There are 9 items listed in the agenda. Feel free to comment after a motion and a second has been made. The consent agendas include item 1, promotion to light equipment operator. Item 2, authorization to hire part-time customer service representative. Item 3, authorization to hire truck driver labor. Number 4, change order number 1, Edgemount Park ADA improvement for $813.75. Item 5, pay application number 2, Edgemount. This is a misspelling there. Edgemount Park ADA improvement for $84,336.55. Item number 6, pay application number 1, Boyd Park Phase 2 improvement of $10,080. And item 7, appointment of Kevin Washington to the Recreation Advisory Committee. Item number 8, authorization to hire park seasonal staff. Number 9, click-fix contract renewal. Say that 5 times. All of which has been described in your packet. Is there a motion to move forward on these consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments of these 9 items?
Mr. Vice President, I'd just like to note for item number 7, Kevin Washington, that he's filling a vacancy from the 3rd Ward on the REC. And I had several conversations with him. I think he'll make a good representative for us. So.
Outstanding. Sounds good. Okay, so, we did move second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion carries for the consent agenda. Commissioner comments. I don't know, any commissioner comments tonight? There's a first. Seeing none, we will move on for a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Good night, everyone.
Say good night, Gracie.
Good night.